It was a beautiful day in the park, with children laughing and playing. A little black girl in a wheelchair smiled brightly, unaware that danger was approaching. But what the angry man didn't know was that a royal guard was silently watching everything. It was a warm spring day in the park, where laughter and joy filled the air. Among the cheerful children running and playing, a little black girl sat quietly in her wheelchair near a shaded tree. Despite her limited mobility, her face radiated happiness as she watched the lively scene before her. Dressed in a bright outfit, with a colorful scarf tied neatly around her neck, her innocent laughter blended perfectly with the sounds of the park. Her sparkling eyes revealed her excitement and curiosity as she observed the world around her, completely immersed in the simple pleasures of the day. A short distance away, a tall and imposing figure sat on a bench, his presence almost blending into the surroundings. He was a royal guard, dressed in formal attire that hinted at his profession. Though off-duty, his trained eyes never stopped scanning the park, always alert to the people and events around him. With a quiet but commanding demeanor, he exuded authority and calmness. Sitting with a sense of purpose, he appeared to be enjoying the serenity of the park, but he remained ever watchful, particularly over the little girl who sat nearby. Meanwhile, on the opposite side of the park, an angry man stormed down the path. His steps were quick and sharp, and his stern expression made it clear that he was in a foul mood. He seemed to carry the weight of his frustration with him, his fists clenched and his gaze darting around as if searching for something, or someone, to lash out at. His annoyance grew with every sound of laughter or joy, his irritation directed at anyone and anything in his path. As his eyes fell on the cheerful girl in the wheelchair, his scowl deepened. His quick steps slowed, and his anger seemed to intensify, his attention now fixed on her. The man's angry gaze locked onto the little girl sitting peacefully in her wheelchair. For reasons only he understood, her cheerful presence seemed to fuel his simmering rage. With his fists clenched tightly, he changed his direction and started walking toward her. His pace quickened with each step, and his expression grew darker, his anger building like a storm ready to unleash. The little girl, unaware of the man's intentions, continued to smile at the children playing nearby, adjusting her colorful scarf with small, delicate hands. As the man approached, he stopped just a few feet from her. His voice, sharp and filled with venom, broke the peaceful atmosphere. "What are you even doing here? People like you don't belong in places like this," he spat, his tone dripping with cruelty. His words targeted not just her disability but also her race, each insult designed to cut deep. The girl's bright smile faltered as fear crept into her eyes. She clutched the armrests of her wheelchair tightly, trying to stay calm, but the trembling of her small hands gave her away. The man, seeing her silence, mistook it for weakness and grew bolder. He leaned down, his face inches from hers, his voice rising with every word. "You're nothing but a burden. You think anyone cares about you?" he sneered. Without warning, he grabbed her wheelchair, shaking it violently. The girl whimpered, her tiny hands gripping the sides for support. Then, with one final, brutal act, he yanked at the chair, breaking it apart and sending the girl tumbling to the ground. The park fell silent for a moment. People nearby stopped to watch, their faces filled with shock. Some hesitated, unsure of what to do. A few took out their phones to record the incident, but no one stepped forward to help. The little girl lay on the ground, helpless and scared, her world shattered by the man's cruelty. The peaceful hum of the park, broken by the man's cruel actions, was suddenly interrupted by the sound of heavy, deliberate footsteps. They echoed through the silence, each one measured and unhurried, but carrying an unmistakable sense of authority. The royal guard, who had been observing the scene from a distance, was now on the move. Dressed impeccably in his formal attire, he walked toward the commotion with a calm yet commanding presence. His tall figure and steady pace seemed to draw the attention of everyone in the park, including the man who had just broken the girl's wheelchair. The man's self-assured expression faltered as he noticed the guard's approach. At first, He tried to maintain his bravado, straightening his shoulders and pretending he wasn't intimidated. But the closer the guard got, the harder it became for the man to hold his composure. The royal guard stopped just a few feet away from him, towering over him like a mountain of silent strength. His eyes, sharp and unwavering, locked onto the man with a gaze that could pierce through steel. The park was deathly quiet, everyone waiting to see what would happen next. "What gives you the right to harm a child?" the guard asked, his voice calm but firm, carrying the weight of unspoken authority. The words were simple, yet they struck like a hammer, reverberating in the still air. The man blinked, momentarily at a loss for words. He opened his mouth to respond, but his voice came out shaky, betraying the fear he tried to hide. I was just teaching her a lesson," he stammered, attempting to justify his actions. "She doesn't belong here. People like her don't." "Enough," the guard interrupted, his tone leaving no room for argument. He stepped closer, closing the distance between them, his imposing figure casting a long shadow over the man. The man instinctively took a step back, his earlier confidence crumbling. The guard's presence was overwhelming, his every move calculated and deliberate. There was no yelling, no theatrics, just a steady, quiet authority that made it clear who was in control. The man tried one last time to argue, his voice rising in desperation. "Who are you to tell me what to do? You think you're better than me just because you're in a uniform?" His words were defiant, but his trembling hands gave away his growing panic. The guard didn't flinch. Instead, he reached out and placed a firm hand on the man's shoulder, stopping him in his tracks. The grip wasn't violent, but it carried a silent promise of what could happen if the man continued his behavior. "You've already made enough mistakes today," the guard said, his voice low but powerful. "This ends now. You will not hurt her, or anyone else, ever again. Do you understand me?" The man squirmed under the guard's unyielding grip, his bravado completely gone. His eyes darted around, searching for an escape, but there was none. The parkgoers, who had been mere spectators until now, began to step forward, their faces filled with quiet support for the guard's actions. The man finally nodded, his shoulders slumping in defeat. The guard released him with a controlled movement, stepping back slightly but keeping his intense gaze fixed on him. "Leave," the guard said simply. The man hesitated for a moment before turning and walking away, his steps hurried and uneven. The crowd parted to let him through, their disapproving eyes following him as he disappeared from view. The royal guard then turned his attention to the little girl, who was still lying on the ground. Kneeling beside her, he spoke gently, his earlier sternness replaced with kindness. "Are you okay?" he asked, his voice soft but steady. The girl nodded, her eyes filled with gratitude and relief. The guard carefully helped her back into a seated position, reassuring her with a warm smile. "You're safe now," he said. And with those words, the calm of the park slowly began to return. As the man turned to leave, his steps faltering and unsteady, the royal guard raised his hand in a commanding gesture. "Stop," he said, his voice firm but measured. The man froze in his tracks, unable to muster any more false bravado. The guard's calm authority was unshakable, leaving no room for defiance. "You're not walking away from this," the guard added, stepping forward and placing a hand on the man's arm to ensure he stayed put. By now, the crowd that had initially hesitated to intervene began to shift. People stepped closer, their earlier fear replaced with a sense of duty and collective courage. A woman holding her phone approached the guard and said, "I recorded everything. The police will have all the evidence they need." Another witness chimed in, "I saw him approach the girl and start yelling. I'll testify if needed." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the crowd as others began offering their accounts of what had happened. The guard nodded, his expression resolute. "Thank you," he said to the witnesses. "This man will be held accountable for his actions. He then retrieved his phone and quickly contacted the authorities, explaining the situation with the clarity and precision of someone accustomed to handling crises. The man, now visibly nervous, tried to protest, stammering, "This is all a misunderstanding. I didn't mean to." "Enough," the guard interrupted, his tone carrying the same weight as before. "You've caused enough harm. The police will decide what happens next." The man fell silent, his shoulders slumping in resignation as the guard kept a watchful eye on him. A few minutes later, the distant sound of sirens filled the air, growing louder with each passing second. When the police arrived, the guard calmly explained the events, handing over his own statement and directing them to the witnesses who had captured everything on video. The officers listened attentively, their expressions hardening as they reviewed the footage. They then took the man into custody, ensuring he could no longer pose a threat. With the situation under control, the guard turned his attention to the little girl, who was still sitting on the ground amidst the remains of her broken wheelchair. Her wide eyes were filled with a mixture of fear and relief, her small hands trembling slightly as she tried to compose herself. The guard knelt down beside her, his stern demeanor softening into one of warmth and kindness. "You're brave," he said gently, his voice soothing. "What happened wasn't your fault, and no one has the right to treat you that way." He placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder, his presence radiating safety and comfort. "You're safe now. I promise." The girl looked up at him, her lips quivering as tears welled in her eyes, not of fear, but of gratitude. Slowly, a small smile spread across her face, and she whispered, "Thank you." The guard smiled back, his heart swelling with quiet pride. "You're welcome," he said softly. He carefully helped her to her feet, ensuring she was steady, and guided her to a nearby bench where she could rest. The crowd, once frozen in silence, now began to applaud lightly, their respect for the guard evident in their expressions. As the girl sat on the bench, a kind passerby approached with a phone in hand. "We've already called for help to replace her wheelchair," they said. The guard nodded, grateful for the support of the community that had finally come together. The little girl, now calm and safe, looked around and saw the unity and compassion that had emerged from the situation. She smiled once more, knowing she wasn't alone, and that kindness and justice had triumphed over cruelty that day. In life, moments of injustice often unfold right before our eyes, challenging us to act. The story you just witnessed is a reminder of one powerful truth: when you see hate, don't stay silent. Stand up for what's right. Silence in the face of cruelty allows it to grow, but courage, even from a single individual, has the power to inspire change and protect those who cannot defend themselves. It's not always easy to confront hatred or wrongdoing. Fear, hesitation, or uncertainty can hold us back. But as this story shows, even one act of bravery can shift the balance, turning passive observers into active allies. A single voice speaking out against injustice can encourage others to join in, creating a wave of kindness and support that drowns out hatred. We want to hear from you. Have you ever seen someone take a stand against injustice? Maybe you've witnessed an act of kindness that restored your faith in humanity, or taken a stand yourself when you saw someone being wronged. Share your story in the comments below. It could inspire others to do the same in their own lives. If this story moved you, don't keep it to yourself. Share it with friends and family so more people can learn the importance of standing up for what's right. Hit the subscribe button to join us for more stories like this, and give this video a like to show your support for justice and kindness. Together, we can create a world where hate has no place and compassion always wins. Thank you for being here with us, and remember, even the smallest act of courage can make a big difference.